Welcome back to Kavanaugh's Corner. Today on the channel I'm going to be reviewing a brand new release. Actually, technically, when I'm doing this review, it's not out yet. It comes out November 19th. And this is one of the all-time greats. And that movie is, of course, North by Northwest, starring Cary Grant, James Mason, Eva Marie Saint. Martin Landau plays a great part in this. Just the whole movie from beginning to end, all 2.5 hours of it, 2.5 hours and change or something, but all of it just, it's so entertaining to watch. This movie came out in 1959, and funny enough, this is one of those movies that I hold near and dear to my heart because it's actually the second Alfred Hitchcock movie I ever saw when I was a kid. The first one was Psycho, and then I saw this. I remember renting this on VHS when I was a kid and just being blown away by it. And now we finally get the film restored in 4K with HDR10 and an all-new Dolby Atmos track on here for audio. So I was really excited about this. As I mentioned earlier, this was sent to me in advance by Warner Brothers. So big thank you to Warner Brothers for sending this out. These are the first films, this, The Terminator, and my next review. They're the only films ever sent to me by Warner Brothers. I've been reviewing a lot of Warner Brothers movies for a long time. Some of them I liked, some of them I didn't. And my opinion does not change, even though they sent me this. I happen to really like the transfer of The Terminator. I thought that was a phenomenal transfer. Funny enough, I also bought it. Here's the Steelbook edition of it, which is absolutely amazing. I pre-ordered this long before I found out these movies were going to be sent to me. Here's the Steelbook for North by Northwest. This is an awesome design. I love the look of this. It's a matte finish, just like the Terminator one. So, yeah, my opinion on these discs is my own opinion. Yours may differ. It's totally cool, but it's not biased in any way. I'm not getting monetarily paid by Warner Brothers to do these reviews, and even though they sent them to me, if they did a crappy job with them in some way, I'm going to say it. But I do want to say I appreciate so many people for watching that previous video with the Terminator and my home theater setup. It means a lot to me. I've been doing this for a long time now, and I really, really appreciate you guys watching and commenting. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. It means so much to me. North by Northwest here, it's a native 4K transfer. It is in HDR10. There's no Dolby Vision or anything in this. And I gotta say, for a movie that came out in 1959, this movie looks incredible. Now, I did notice at times with this new transfer, there were some weird things that happened on and off throughout the movie with this transfer. 95% of this movie looks immaculate. Whatever technology that was used to work with this film, it was done really, really well 95% of the time. I think the colors on this now are just astounding. This was shot in VistaVision by Alfred Hitchcock, and I gotta say, cinematography-wise, this movie has never looked better. Thankfully, they did not overdo the digital noise reduction on this 4K. There is film grain through almost every scene in this film. And that's something I wanted to talk about because I noticed in maybe a handful of some close-up shots of Cary Grant, Eva Marie Saint, there were a couple close-ups that looked like they kind of turned the knob a little bit too much on the digital noise reduction. But it was so quick and infrequent that it really doesn't impact the film at all. This is still the North by Northwest you remember. Color palette wise, it is basically the exact same thing, just extended now, and that is the most wonderful thing they could have done with this film. It looks gorgeous, as I said earlier. The landscape shots, those giant matte paintings now just look stunning. Now, there were a few moments in the movie where the 4K does not do some of the special effects any favors. Some of the rear projection in the movie looks a little iffy, but in the grand scheme of things, it really still works for the film. The end chase sequence, without giving too much of the film away, even though this movie is, literally, over a half century old, it is stunning to look at. The nighttime scenes now look so much better than they previously did. As I said, the HDR10 on this disc really does wonders for this picture. Detail level is super high through most of the film. Cary Grant's suit just looks so gorgeous as the movie goes on. Eva Marie Saint, I mean, you can see every little crevice of her face. Her blonde hair just jumps out at you now. The scene where Cary Grant is driving after they fill him full of booze, that sequence, even though the rear projection hasn't aged so well, it looks awesome. And his facial features, like his reactions as he's like driving and the wind is blowing his hair up, you can see where Cary Grant is going gray in his hair in that scene. It's unbelievable. It is truly unbelievable. The famous sequence where Cary Grant's getting chased down by the crop duster looks amazing. The browns of the dirt, the dead crop that he hides in as the plane is swooping down and dropping that poisonous crop dust on him. It's so cool. It is so phenomenal looking. But like I said, the 4K in some parts looks amazing. The picture just jumps out at you all throughout. But in other scenes, it looks like, for some reason, in maybe 3 or 4 close-ups, they may have dialed up that DNR a little too much. And, there's always been some shots in this film, some close-ups, where Hitchcock and his director of photography used that dreamy kind of filter, that hazy filter, and it looks amazing. But I noticed there were a couple shots where that film grain all of a sudden just like went south for the winter. It just disappeared. And some facial features just seemed just slightly too waxy. And it's, if you blink, you miss it. But there were a couple moments like that, so I have to make you aware. But through most of the film, it just looks incredible. On the other hand, we have the Dolby Atmos audio track on this. And this was something, it was kind of a little bit of a weird situation. So North by Northwest here, the original audio track for this was a mono track. Like I said, came out in '59. To take one audio track and to split it that much, sometimes it's okay, sometimes it works. I thought it worked really well for the Terminator, but for this, I felt like it may have been a little futile. Dialogue sounded amazing with the Dolby Atmos. Bernard Herrmann's score sounded incredible. I loved the sound of the music in this film with that score. Sound effects were really well placed. There's a good amount of them in this movie. But for the most part, I really don't know if an Atmos track was really necessary on this release. Am I complaining that we have it? Absolutely not. It's great for what it is. It's totally fine for what it is. But for some reason, it just felt like it was a little too much, if that makes any sense. In terms of immersive audio, the movie really only has one moment that I could really think of where immersive audio was really used in terms of overheads. And that's, of course, the famous crop duster sequence. That scene with the Dolby Atmos was just mind-blowing. I mean, it really was. It was so cool to hear the overhead effects with that, hearing stuff in the background going on. That was really, really cool. But 9 times out of 10, all the audio is in the front channels. And it's great. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. But having it spread out that much, it was fine. You know, it was totally fine. I loved the sound of it. I'm not saying I didn't like it. It was just, it didn't feel like it was a natural part of the film, if that makes any sense whatsoever. It just felt like a little too try hard to get this movie into like all these different speakers, with the exception of that famous sequence. But was it bad? Not at all. It was not a bad audio track at all. For the purists out there, this does include the original theatrical audio, which is like a split mono track. I listened to that as well. That sounded amazing. But, you know, like I said, for the most part, a lot of people are going to look for the Atmos track, and it was, you know, nothing to sneeze at. I really enjoyed it. It just, I really don't know if it was used to full effect, but regardless, it still sounded really good for what it was. In terms of special features, the 4K disc, and it is just a 4K disc with a digital code, by the way, the 4K disc has a feature-length commentary by screenwriter Ernest Lehman, and it has an all-new, like 20-something minute featurette called North by Northwest Cinematography, Score, and the Art of the Edit. And that was a really cool new little featurette that goes over different parts of the making of the film, but also gives us a little deep dive into the cinematography of it, the music, the score of it, and the editing of the film. And it's really cool to see how all three of those things come together really well all throughout this film, and it's amazing to see. And there's also a couple holdover special features from previous Blu-ray releases and DVD releases. One called Destination Hitchcock, the making of North by Northwest, which is, I think it's almost an hour long, but it's hosted by Eva Marie Saint. And it's so cool to hear about the making of this movie from the star actress of the film. So that was really cool. That's probably my favorite one out of all of them. The Master's Touch, Hitchcock's Signature Style, which is more about Alfred Hitchcock than anything else. North by Northwest, One for the Ages, and a guided tour with Alfred Hitchcock, which is more of a vintage kind of little preview for the film. So really cool stuff there. Overall, North by Northwest, this new transfer, is a humdinger. Like I said, it's not perfect, but it's a really, really phenomenal looking transfer of the film. The audio may be a little bit too much of an overreach to stretch it out to so many channels, but it still works well. I enjoyed it for what it was. And of course, the special features, there's one new one and a bunch of carryover ones, so really good stuff. I really enjoyed watching this in 4K. On an OLED TV, it blew me away. It really blew me away. The colors were incredible. The contrast of the nighttime scenes looked better than ever. And overall, it was just really cool to see a film from this time period in such fantastic quality. I was really, really impressed. And if you want to pick up North by Northwest, I'll leave a link in the description below that leads to Amazon. And if you use that link, it helps me out here on the channel As always, again, I want to say thank you so much for coming back to Kavanaugh's Corner. That's all for today, but please stay tuned. I have one more new release coming within the next day or so, so please stay tuned. I wish you guys all the best. Please stay safe, keep collecting, and take it easy.